And hello and good evening to Anglo-Irish Astro Geeks. I had to think a second there. I do so many shows that I have to remember the title. Sorry about that. But, okay, so without further ado, my name's Nicky Vetts.
My name is Anne Dunn from Astronomy Ireland.
Neil, are you there? Have we
Oh,
lost Neil?
must have lost Neil.
Yes, we've lost Neil. Oh dear, hold on. Pausing.
I heard a ping and then
Hello, my name is Neil Norman.
Well, after that little technical blip, we're all back. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another show. Been a month, my gosh. Has it been a month? Yes, it has been a month.
A very busy month.
Absolutely, a very, very busy month. Comets and everything else has been very, very busy. But we're not here to discuss comets tonight. But
No.
there's quite a few things for us to discuss that's close to home. So, Anne, do you want to kick us off with the planets?
yeah. Well, I'm going to start from August the 28th, which is Friday, so we'll have a bit of time to organise. So the first thing is at 11 p.m. on Friday, the 28th of August, we're going to have like an absolutely stunning view of the almost full moon just below Jupiter, which is also really bright at the moment. And then the following day, Saturday, at dusk, it will be just below Saturn. So two nice conjunctions of the moon and planets. And of course, Mars is getting really bright at the moment. It's actually beginning to rival Jupiter in brightness because it's getting closest to us now. It'll be actually closest in October. So the months of August, September, October, and November are the best times to view it. And we only get that every 2 years. So it's really worth looking if you have a telescope. But even if you just look with your own eyes, you can't miss that red colour. And definitely worth having a look. If you do have a telescope, the summer is coming to the southern pole ice cap, so you can watch it fade each day over time. And the only thing is, the dust storms are expected, so they'll start to blot everything out. So if you have a look sooner now rather than wait till November, you know.
Mm.
And then what else? Oh yeah, on the same day as Saturn, I forgot to say, if you have a telescope, you can easily spot Saturn's moon Titan on August the 28th. And then another one that you guys we talked about last time was the Golden Handle, which again will be visible on the moon on August the 28th, the Friday again. And then, I don't know, do you want me to talk about September yet, or?
Well, I was going to jump in with a bit from Andrew Plank, an astronomer, teacher, musician, who does a very nice lunar blog called What's Up on the Moon Tonight. So basically, from August the 17th to the 23rd, it takes us from lunar day 28 to day 5. And in his blog, for the current blog, it's highlighting the crater Janssen, which is available for observations on Sunday evening. Now, it's located about 85 miles southeast of the Hoalita Valley. Its diameter is a whopping 120 miles. Copernicus, the queen of all craters, is a mere 58 miles in diameter. Janssen is a textbook example of how new craters are superimposed over the top of older craters, and obviously at the same time are smaller than the older craters that lie underneath. So yes, this is a very old crater, and its walls are in ruin. And it is worth, and as he points out, it's worth a visit. When the sun is low, it's like visiting the ruins of an old castle. It's still full of artifacts and reminders of a bygone age. So the remains of the walls are still visible, and there's mountains, rills, which are lunar valleys, and well-defined craters on its interior. The largest intruder is the crater Fabricus at 48 miles, and that's occupying the northern portion of the floor. The most impressive rill, Rima Janssen, is visible through very small telescopes, and it appears to be a graben that curves conspicuously from the southwest wall of Janssen and attaches to the south wall, of Fabricus. It is unusual in a highland rill, And of course Janssen is a rewarding field to play in, and it's well worth a regular visit. So go and look up Andrew's regular moon blog, and as I say, I quite enjoy it. I actually use it a lot, and I do on occasions if I'm looking for specific objects. I can use Canary 4 at Slew for looking there. I think my most recent good shot was I got a fairly decent picture of the Montes Alpinus, and of course Mons Hadley. Hello, we've lost Neil again.
Oh dear.
Okay, bear with us, folks. I'm going to pause the show right now, and I'm going to try and get Neil back. We'll be back.
Happening here must be gremlins in the works.
Oh yes, those gremlins get everywhere. Just don't feed them after midnight. Now, Anne, whilst we were paused, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just asking you if you can you see those binoculars? Those craters with binoculars.
You can certainly, I would have thought, made out the main crater Janssen. There really doesn't say how small a scope you need, but normally I would say we're looking at about maybe a 4-inch reflector onwards, possibly with a really decent Alpo refractor. You should definitely get it. So the bigger the binoculars, probably the better the chance.
Okay. Good. Just for anyone can have a look then.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I think not confined to people that have nice big telescopes.
No, not confined to people with 16-inch dobs, no. But get a decent moon map and really learn your way around the moon. I really can't emphasize that as too much, because really you do need to know what you're doing. Now, the one I use, apart from the one Sir Patrick Moore drew for his own use, which I have a copy of on my wall. Now, I actually use I'm unfolding it here, the Sky and Telescope field map of the moon, and it's illustrated by Anton Ruckel. Now, again, this is where, if you're a serious lunar, and he's dropped again.
Oh no!
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Oh, jolly good.
There. Okay.
Yes, have a drink, old boy. Have a drink.
I just did. Large brandy.
So anyway, as I was saying before, I thought Neil had dropped. Anton Ruckel's Atlas of the Moon. It costs about £100 to pick up these days, but it is one of those books that's really, really worth it. So, as I say, it's one I've got in my collection. I'm bringing it next time I go across to the States. That's definitely one of the books I'm bringing back, because I really love that book. It's got some superb mapping. You can also go to the L-Pod that Charles did, and I can't remember his last name, but he did a lot of stuff for Sky and Telescope. Charles Wood, that's it. They had a group called L-Pod, Lunar Picture of the Day. Now, they have on the L-Pod wiki a image of the moon into sectors, all based on the Ruckel map. And that, to me, is a fabulous reference. It's still available, I believe, online. And, of course, the other thing that I use a lot for my lunar work is Virtual Moon Atlas. Because I can take my image and I can basically look at the exact date and time using my laptop, and then I can figure out exactly where on the moon I am. Now, the other good thing, of course, being it works brilliantly on a laptop, there is a lightweight version, so you don't really have to have all the geological stuff and all that. But it is one of those programs that's out there that really, really does help you get around the moon. And one of my ways of doing it is I use the Mare as a reference point. So the first thing that I do is I identify the Mare, in the image, and from then I start comparing images, the image I've got with the actual map of the moon for that area. So I would zoom in, and then I would be looking to match items like the Montes Alpinus, the Apennines, take your pick. And then once I've got them located on the map, I can then look to go and crater hop. So it's probably the modern way to do it, but I still really do recommend having a very, very good moon map and get to know it. Of course, Tycho and Copernicus are always good markers to use, and along with the mare, once you've figured out which mare you're looking at in your image, then you can start to zoom in and work out what craters you're looking at. And of course, if you have GoTo, you can actually run your scope from the laptop and from the program, as it is ASCOM compliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know Patrick wasn't really into GoTo and all that stuff, but I'm pretty sure even he would have enjoyed using it just because of the sheer accuracy involved. Of course, if you're interested in rills, mountains and stuff like that, and other things, then you can use that really very well to find your way around. In fact, that when I did my picture recently of the moon and of that particular area, that's how I confirmed that I'd actually imaged Mons Hadley. So yes, get to know the moon, you know what you're looking at. Best way to do that is start with the mare and then work out. Oh my God, I sound like Patrick.
Yeah, but it's really good advice, because it's pretty hard to just go and find what you're looking for, unless if you find one spot, then it's a bit like the constellations. Once you find one thing, then you can find your way around.
That's it.
But as I say, it's just one of those things. I'm into mountains, rills, and domes on the moon. So for me, knowing roughly where I need to be, and once I've actually set, I can get GoTo installed on the Dob, then it would be even easier for me, because then I can just point it straight at the formation I want. And of course, being an amateur astronomer, we are one of the few groups of people who still can produce proper, accurate scientific work, which is another bonus really, because most disciplines you normally have to be a professional now, and we are we as amateurs can make discoveries. Just look at the number of people who have their names tacked on the end of comets. Not all of those people are professional astronomers. They're amateur astronomers who've learned their way around the sky, and they know where they're looking at, and when something doesn't look right, then they know they've got something. Possibly even perhaps a nova or even a supernovae. And that is very, very important with nova and supernovae work, knowing your way around the sky, because it does distort the constellations, so you do need to know what you're looking at.
I do remember, like you were saying, I mean, there was a guy who took a video recording of the last lunar eclipse, and I believe he caught an impact a certain amount of time in so like you say, these things happen. People catch things happening on Jupiter, amateurs,
Yeah, that's right.
Backyard,
Yeah, an Irish chap called, I think it's John McKeown. He captured an object, and it was confirmed then by another, I can't think of his name now, a German guy, maybe about 5 years ago. They both caught an impact on Jupiter.
And of course, Chris Goe and Anthony Weasley still do patrol Jupiter for impacts, as well as doing their other interests. One of their favourite things is seeing if they can find another one. And to be honest, what people forget is with man going back to the moon, knowing about where these impacts are happening is very important, because it will help NASA and the European Space Agency pick a safe location. I think it's kind of obvious right now from previous research. It's going to have to be in the South Aitken Basin or up at the North Lunar Pole, because that's the only place where you're going to find water ice in crater shadows that will allow them to provide water, air, and of course they can make their own rocket fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's helium-3, of course.
Helium-3's there. There's hydrogen sulfides there. Once you start cracking the water,
Exactly.
you've got air you can breathe. You can siphon off the hydrogen for fuel.
Yeah.
Helium-3 is a technology that's probably going to come more and more important in later years,
Definitely.
but it's there.
Mhm.
And the
Oh,
great
yeah.
thing is, LRO proved it was there.
Yeah.
And of course that means man returning to the moon and living there is now more feasible. We don't have to boost gases into Earth orbit, then do CIS and send it to the moon, land it on the moon. That's already there waiting. We've just got to learn how to use what we have.
Yeah. Harvest it. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
of course, the other good thing about the moon is the regolith itself can be turned into radiation protection for the habitats.
Building. Yeah.
And
Very true.
it made me laugh because when I first saw the European Space Agency's design for a moon base, all I could think of was Jerry Anderson's UFO, his moon base there. It looks so much like it, and I'm thinking, ha! Jerry Anderson beat them all to the idea.
By decades. Yeah.
Literally by decades, he had sussed out what were probably the most economic best vibe. Yeah.
Definitely.
But it's kind of amusing. Science fiction is becoming science fact. We know it's going to be domes. We're now very sure of the fact that we're probably going to make concrete with the regolith
Yeah.
and use it to protect everything. So, isn't it nice?
When do we think we're going to have a next person on the moon, or a lady on the moon? That'd be nice to have a female astronaut walk on the moon.
2024, Artemis.
Not long to go then.
Not really, no.
No, couple 3 years, so, or 4 years. That'd be the first, won't it?
I'm gonna chuck out a name. Since
Okay.
we're talking about things lunar at the minute, Paul and Anne Spurdis. They both worked on the LRO project. Paul's no longer with us, sadly, but Paul was involved in a lot of studies about viable lunar habitats, how to make the best economic use of the moon, how to economically go between the moon and the Earth. I'll put a link in to the notes about some of his stuff. It's absolutely brilliant. In fact, him and his wife actually wrote a rather good science fiction novel for teenagers about going and living on the moon and coming back to Earth, etc. And it's
Wow.
available free as a PDF on the website that Paul Spurdis has.
Wow.
I'll also put the sound bites link in. Well, actually, it's on the main links anyway on his website. He's giving a talk to the European Space Agency about it.
Brilliant.
All right. That's one to
Great,
take
yeah.
note of.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Perhaps it's something for the magazine too, Anne.
That's exactly what I was thinking because we have a kids page, so that would be something to alert the kids to.
Yeah, the story was called Moonwake, and it was about how a young man was leaving his family on Earth to go with his parents to live on the moon. And obviously the moon base is situated in the South Aitken Basin because of the water deposits.
Yeah.
Ah,
So,
so
I must admit, I was never really, until maybe the last couple of years, and I've been doing this for since Halley's Comet back in 86, but I've never really been into the moon, because I was always of the opinion, unfortunately, because I was more of a comet sort of person, and a galaxy, deep sky and all that sort of thing. The moon ruins it, obviously. But I always loved the moon in the phases after fall. So, when it's come in the morning, when you can still see it in, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I love those phases. But I'm getting there with the moon. I've always struggled with it a bit.
well, the thing is, what people forget is it's written off as a dead world. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
The moon is always changing. There's always micro impacts going on. The solar wind affects it greatly. And of course, the light is always changing on everything. When you look at the crater on one day, the sun's moved and the light has changed, and it will display something else about a formation that you thought you knew.
And of course, don't forget, it's moving away from us as well.
Absolutely, but not for a while yet.
Look, a few more years we have it. Yes.
We don't have to worry about that.
No, we don't.
No Space 1999 type issues to worry about. Having said that, mentioned Space 1999, what is the first thing that came out of Elon Musk's mouth about going to the moon? I want to build Moonbase Alpha. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is just getting too good.
Mr. Musk
watched all the same science fiction movies and series we watched.
He must have done. I think he sent more up today, didn't he? Was it today he sent some more of his things up, his little satellites? Was it today or tomorrow?
Ruining the night sky, but never mind.
Yes, I got told off the last time I mentioned that, didn't I, Nick?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said what I said, but I'm sorry, Mr. Musk, if you're listening. You're nice guys.
Now, saying that, of course, we all know that this time of year, normally on the BBC, we lose the sky at night for a month, and it gets replaced with Stargazing Live. Guess what? No Stargazing Live forever.
Oh.
The BBC has cancelled it. All right, okay. I don't really enjoy Brian Cox's method of delivery. Some people said Patrick was very dry. My God, this was so bone dry. It was unbelievable. But that's just a personal opinion. Before anybody
I agree totally.
Yeah. I still enjoyed it, though. I thought it was great. I loved it.
I really did enjoy the ones from Australia with Space Gandalf.
Yes.
So, Greg was, still is, of course. He's still doing his work out there, but he was great on that show, I must admit. He has this presence, this delivery that is, for me, just like the Australian version of Patrick Moore. I could sit there and listen to him talk for hours. I mean, he could have talked about the most mundane thing in the sky that night, and I could have sat there for an hour listening to it, just like Patrick Moore. Some of the shows used to be not so good as others, the Sky at Night, but there's just the way that the enthusiasm, the passion, and all of a sudden you were dragged into something that you weren't really interested in, but you still listened with intent. And he's got that delivery. Brian Cox, Mr. Cox, I know I have to be careful what I say, because I do tend to be a bit of a loose cannon, but I like his shows. I do. He's obviously very educated. Wasn't very good a musician, but not as good as Brian Payne anyway. He'd agree with me if he's listening. I don't know. It's the delivery. And Dara O'Brien. I mean, he's a great comedian. He does great stuff, but they're not really a good team to me, and they don't click. That's my opinion. That's the bit that said it out the show. So,
well, we've got somebody whittering on about conspiracy theories and dragging up the old one. Oh, we never went to the moon. It's all a Hollywood soundstage. Well, you know what? Yes, we did go to the moon. And if you really want, I'm going to put this out there. If you really, really want to see the best debunking of we didn't go to the moon, look for the Mythbusters TV series from the States. Because they took all the points that are made on that I couldn't have been that because the footprint's too firm, the angle of the light, you don't see any stars, and the shadow and the flag was waving, and they actually went through everything and showed, well, we must have gone to the moon because the regolith being what it is, there's no wind to disturb the regolith, so you make a footprint and it stays there.
Yes.
When you actually, because of the sun is not attenuated by an atmosphere like it is for us, you wouldn't see stars because the sunlight will actually block them out.
Yeah.
There's just so much sunlight that you just don't see them, even with a camera.
Of course, yeah.
And they actually did angular measurements of the shadows of everything, because that was the biggest of the. Because of the shadow. That's why we didn't go to the moon. It had to be on Earth. Yeah, but they actually proved using sun angles and everything else, yes, you will have a shadow on the moon, and yes, the shadow that was cast by the astronauts, etc., is correct because there's no atmosphere.
Yeah.
So,
and always the classic one is the flag waving, isn't it?
Yeah.
They always pick up on the flag waving and things like this.
but you touch something because of you're in 1/6 of a gravity, I think, maybe 1/8. But let's go 1/6 of a gravity. You touch something and it keeps moving.
Yes,
So
it does.
if you knock the flag or
Yeah.
the polar flag's on, it's going to move.
Yeah.
Until it runs out of kinetic energy.
Yeah.
So yes, that's why the flag was waving, because somebody nudged it. It got nudged, and therefore it will keep moving until it runs out of energy, basically. So yes, we did go to the moon. We have the rocks, and let's face it, this was at the height of the Cold War. Not only is America going to the moon, it is in a political and semi-military struggle with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union would have used any hint of irregularity with the signals from day one.
Of course they would, yeah.
And to destroy the Americans' claim they went to the moon.
Absolutely.
So would the Chinese, actually, think about it.
Yeah, of course.
The Vietnam War is on, and they're looking for a propaganda coup.
Of course, yeah.
And the best one would have been if they had faked it, because of the time lags, and if you're having to use dish antennas to collect these signals due to the frequencies employed. If there'd have been an instantaneous reply, boom, that would have been all over the Pravda. It would have been all over the left-wing papers.
Of course, yeah.
The Daily Mirror, the Sun, the Morning Star would have had a field day with it.
There's just one, on the same thing, but I've watched many programs where people involved with the actual Apollo missions have said that the Russians were, many years in advance of us. So why did the Russians not get to the moon first? I mean, even the Americans said that they had more technology than we did, but how come they didn't get there? And why did the Russians then give up?
Because basically the N-1 rocket was a disaster. It was the only rocket they had that could have gotten them to the moon. It would have equaled the Saturn V rocket.
Right.
But they couldn't produce one, or they couldn't actually launch one safely.
I see. Right.
Thing is, the Soviet Union at that point was very, very secretive. We very rarely knew about any disasters when it came to their space missions.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they were having problems testing the rocket engine, or when they actually had a rocket built for test and it exploded, unless that was known to the Western intelligence agencies, who probably wouldn't even at that point wouldn't have dared mention it, because then the Russians would have been onto them.
Yeah.
Basically, they lost the moon race because the technology wasn't reliable and safe enough. It's one thing to go to the moon, but the whole coup with Apollo was we went to the moon and we came back safely.
Yes, true. Yeah.
And it would have been a hollow propaganda victory to say, well, we beat the Americans, but unfortunately our cosmonauts are going to have died there.
Yeah, true.
And the fact then the Americans still landed and we came home safely, the Americans still would have won. And after Apollo 11 successfully landed and came back from the moon, the race was over, really. The Russians there was no point in the Russians going any further, because it just financially would have crippled them. So that ended the moon race. Effectively, it ended the minute Armstrong and Aldrin stepped out onto the moon. It was definitely ended the minute the second that they successfully splashed down, and after the ticker tape parade, there was no point.
No.
It was just going to be just a waste of money because America had beaten them.
Yeah. That was a bit of a kick for them, wasn't it? I mean, as you say, the Cold War was on, and they're certainly a nation that didn't want to accept defeat at any cost. But
Well,
there you go.
if you think about it, the thing that pushed America to get to, within a decade, go to the moon and come back safely was the thought of a red moon, of the Russians landing there. Now, if you know your Heinlein science fiction and the Green Hills of Earth, the thought of a enemy power landing on the moon, potentially being then able to set up nuclear weapons pointing back at the Earth. The Cold War's over. There is no going to be no, because they just won. Because any nation that even dared to do anything would be wiped out from space. They would have very little warning, really, and there's nothing much they can do once a missile's been launched.
No, that's it. That's the thing.
And the thing is, there's now a race to go to Mars. But will the Mars hoodoo strike again? The only country successfully to go, well, the ESA is not a country, but the only people who have successfully gone to Mars, landed, and had ET phone home, so to speak, probes phone home, has been America and the European Space Agency.
Very true, yeah.
And the Russians have had a very poor success rate. Venus was slightly better for them. But again, it was, even for the Americans and for the European Space Agency, Mars every now and again played its joker and won.
It did, didn't it? Yeah.
So now you've got three countries sending 3 space probes and 2 landers to Mars. And the question is, will the Mars hoodoo get who they get? So the UAE's going, America's going with the Perseverance. Thank you.
Perseverance. Yeah.
And the little helicopter.
Yeah. And of course the Chinese are going. All the Chinese and the Americans are planning sample return missions.
Yes.
I
think the Chinese will be good. I think they'll be. I think the Chinese will do a good job. I think they've got their numbers correct, and I think they'll be. I don't think they'll do this for nothing.
Well, they successfully. Sorry.
I love the name of the Chinese mission, Tianwen-1, which means Quest for Heavenly Truth.
Exactly. What gets me is the Chinese did what even NASA said was logistically impossible, to put up a satellite around the moon and then send a probe to the far side, land, and have a rover go out and do a bit of wandering and report home through a satellite put in just the sweet spot to allow it to see the far side and to see Earth and send and relay signals.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic photos came back.
Absolutely. And of course, the thing is, NASA said for a long time it can't be done. That's why we always aim to go to the near side of the moon, because that way we could speak direct to the lander and our astronauts, and we haven't got to worry about relays. Obviously, the command module, the SEM was the relay in a lot of cases. But as I say, the idea was they can talk direct to the astronauts. There's no relay. There is a signal lag. There's a signal lag to Mars. There's a signal lag to the moon.
Of course, yeah.
And that's dangerous when you're talking to people who may need to make a sudden decision, and you can't see. You may be able to see what they're seeing, but you're looking in the past. The problem could already be upon them by the time you know it's there, back on Earth.
That's the danger. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, good luck to all 3. And anything that's going to bring us more knowledge about the Red Planet is to be applauded, I think.
Absolutely. So, and of course, we've got that coming to opposition very soon, haven't we? So it's sitting very nicely in our skies at the moment. So
absolutely,
it's good to look up there and think about what will be happening next February.
And sadly, folks, there are no Mysterons on Mars either.
No.
Exciting next February. They're all arriving at the same time because they all took that window. If they missed that window of launching in July, they would have had to wait for, I think, was it another year or something before they got the opportunity again, or maybe 2 years.
No, it's 2 years.
Yeah. So they're all going to going to arrive in February, but I think the Chinese aren't actually going to land until about May, so they're going to orbit a bit first and then land when they're ready.
Now, the interesting thing is that the UAE's mission is called El Amal, or Hope. It was launched from Japan, and the team actually running the project is made up of 80% women.
Good, yeah.
And
Fantastic.
of course, the Chinese probe, the quest for heavenly truth, is going to Utopia Platana, which if you're a Star Trek fan and a Babylon 5 fan, you will know very well, because that's where Starfleet has its shipyards.
Well, I didn't know that, but... So I wonder what the weather will be like there. I mean, because as we know, I mean, Mars is going to be coming pretty close to us, but of course it's coming to perihelion soon as well. So I wonder if we're going to have any major dust storms, and because these things can last for months, can't they? So I wonder if that could hinder. I wonder, because once these dust storms get kicking off, they cause major problems, don't they? So
do you want the Mars weather forecast?
I wonder if they'll have to sort of like, just continue circling the planet until the weather calms down. You never know; these things can happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happened to the rover Opportunity, NASA's rover. It just froze to death because it got covered with the sandstorm and the solar panels stopped working.
Okay, so the latest weather forecast for Mars is as follows. This is for Elysium Platana, and this is from the InSight mission. So on Sol 611, which is August the 15th, there is a high of minus 16 Celsius and a low of minus 94 Celsius.
Ooh, a bit chilly.
Yeah, a bit nippy, isn't it? I will put the link to the Mars InSight mission weather report into the notes.
But the good thing is that technology that we're sending up, I know you just read the temperatures out there, and it was a bit chilly, but those are the temperatures that are achievable almost in the Antarctic or Antarctica, aren't they? I mean, so we have the technology on Earth that we can practice with. We have the sort of the conditions where we can allow for, allowing for this cold that can freeze bits and pieces. So we can work with this. I mean, that's why Mars is such a place. And
think about this, Neil. The maximum pressure in pascals is 807.5. The average is 789.8, and the minimum pressure is 756.
Ooh.
And that was on Sol 611.
Right. So there's I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's a bit. It is definitely a bit chilly.
Yes, it is.
Were you watching the Sky at Night there about the lava tubes, the leftover lava tubes they think might be a place where they can set up home, like big caves?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the moon, that was one of the suggestions made, that we could use lava tubes on the moon to put our installations in.
I saw that, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Safe from radiation and...
Exactly, underground, yeah.
Yeah. Cosmic radiation and the solar wind and everything.
Yeah, if you get really big, coronal mass ejection, like sort of like what happened when we had that Carrington event in 1859 or whatever it was. Yeah. If you'd need to be out of the way then, wouldn't you? Something big like that coming away.
Now, of course, above, since we're talking Mars. Let's keep going. Arisia Mons volcano on Mars, another unusual cloud has again appeared. It appears to be a compound of ice water, so it's no stranger to the volcano. However, the cloud is not linked to volcanic activity. Looking at Anne's excellent notes, it's a long, thin cloud formed by an airflow of the volcano's leeward slope. Again, this is something we're used to on Earth.
Yeah, of course. This is why Mars is so fascinating. It's like, geology away from home,
So basically, a sol or a day on Mars is slightly longer than Earth at 24 hours, 39 minutes and 35 seconds. A year is equal to 668 sols, which in Earth terms is 687 days. Yeah. So yes, the seasons are twice as long, So, and the summer's under the during the southern solstice, this unusual cloud expands for about 3 hours in the morning. Then suddenly it'll go and disappear within a few hours.
Brilliant. Which hemisphere is towards the sun at the moment? Is it the southern one?
Yeah, I think it's the southern hemisphere is coming.
Yeah, the cloud has appeared at the moment, so it's during the southern solstice. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you get these lovely little dust devils, don't we?
Mm.
We get dust devils shooting past the rovers there. That's pretty good.
I tend to think if this helicopter idea works, it will be brilliant because it means that we can actually explore the Maris Vallenara, and that has always been something that's really, really intrigued me. I think ever since the BBC made their wonderful docudrama, Journey to the Planets, the idea of a trip through the Valley Marinaris, either in a balloon or by helicopter, would be fascinating. Obviously, it needs to be an unmanned one, because the astronauts need to be able to take cover, of course, if there's a sudden solar storm. By the time it reaches Mars, if you're in the middle of a trip down the Marinaris Valley, or Mariner Valley in English, you're kind of in a lot of trouble.
You would be.
But yeah, it's
hard to believe. I was watching the sky at night there the other day with Patrick Moore, and I can't remember how many years ago. It must be 40-something years ago, and they were still talking about vegetation on Mars.
Yes.
We look where we are today. We're gonna. It's crazy.
Yes, Schiaparelli has a lot to answer for.
That was amazing. Can I just say about my notes there, Nick, that this was one of our writers came up with this. Natasha Metcalf is her name. She's one of our writers for the magazine. So just to give her the credit for the notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natasha.
So, what about this? Should we go on to the Milky Way doppelganger?
Oh, yes.
Take it away. Yep.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so we all think the early universe is sort of a really turbulent, crazy place where nothing could, things were just forming, but you kind of didn't really expect the early galaxies to be very well organized. So there's a galaxy called SPT 0418-47, very exciting name. It's really, really faint. It's so far away. It's only it was 1.4 billion years old, so very early universe. So scientists weren't really expecting to find a sort of any ordered kind of galaxy that early on in the universe. But they found one, and this is the one. It's very similar to the Milky Way, which is totally unexpected. And it has the flat disk, the same as ours, and the galactic bulge, which is that tightly packed concentration in the middle full of stars that are, clustered together. But it doesn't have the spiral arms of the Milky Way. So the reason they found it was there was a nearby galaxy nearer to us, and they used it was just nicely placed for gravitational lensing, which is where the light from the nearby galaxy bends and warps the light and also magnifies it. So we were able to see this galaxy. It's the only way we wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So the light's been traveling to us for all that time. And they're very excited to find it, but it also means that then our view of early galaxy formation is kind of turned upside down now. So we're kind of waiting now for it was the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, which is in short is ALMA, which was able to find it using the gravitational lensing technique. So we're waiting for the European Southern Observatory's extremely large telescope, it's coming online soon, and it will be able to tell us a bit more about what happened to galaxies just after the Big Bang.
Amazing.
I think the thing is, compared to perhaps 50, 60, 70 years ago, we are kind of we've become expectant of having our cosmological model ideas suddenly torn apart by unexpected results. Hubble first gave us the idea, and actually pointed out quite correctly, the Andromeda galaxy is in fact a galaxy completely separate from ours, and not a nebula like a lot of people thought.
Yes.
That's right.
So when you think about it, Hubble was doing a lot of his work in the 30s and stuff.
I was going to say, that's under 100 years ago.
Yeah. So
Even
really,
galaxies existed.
Actually, can I just mention there's a fantastic book out to celebrate Hubble's 30th anniversary. It's called The Hubble Legacy, 30 Years of Discoveries and Images by Jim Bell. And Jim has been involved in practically every mission that NASA has ever run. And then they have an astronaut who does the foreword, whose name I can't remember just now. John Grunsfeld, who went and repaired Hubble, and it's just a beautiful book. Like it's kind of, I suppose it's like a coffee table book, but it's absolutely gorgeous, and it goes into the whole history right from its inception up to now. And here it is. They didn't expect it to last more than 15 years, and it's still going strong 30 years later.
yeah.
I know. It's amazing.
I think the thing is,
Well,
I think the nice thing is now that we're actually, well, now that the NASA has got itself the potential for going beyond high Earth orbit with Orion, perhaps in 10 or 20 years we can look to refurbish. I would hate to see Hubble deorbited into the Pacific graveyard. I think, to be honest, it's well worth another upgrade, purely because of the simple fact is its replacement, the James Webb Space Telescope, is only going to look in the near infrared, and once its coolant runs out, that's it. It can't be refurbished, and it can't be refueled.
No.
So it's got a finite lifetime, unlike the Hubble, which can be updated with new optics, with new cameras, have the gyros replaced as necessary. Everything is modular on the Hubble.
and you know who I'm thinking might be the one sending up the repair crew? Elon Musk.
Quite possible.
It's very likely, isn't it?
Contract.
Well,
yes, he could get the contract.
just keep in mind that the Dragon is not rated beyond low Earth orbit. The current commercial contract is for low Earth orbit, whereas NASA is keeping for itself high Earth orbit and beyond. Obviously, everybody knows Musk wants to go to Mars, and NASA saying, fine, go at it, because it works for them. Because at the end of the day, they have commercial company developing Mars systems means that they can concentrate on other stuff. They can concentrate on the robots, on the various probes, and getting CIS done. Because, to be honest, until we've got CIS as a permanent habitat, and we have a habitat on the moon, we can't even think to go to Mars. We have so much equipment that needs to be tested, and the only place we can really, truly, safely test it is the moon, because you're only about a few days away if you're really determined to get there far, do a fast-track trip to the moon, and Orion certainly will allow us to do that.
Yes.
Very true.
But at the moment, the last repairs were done by the space shuttle. So they don't have anything at the moment in the pipeline, as far as I know, for upgrading Hubble.
I think,
like to say, it would be an awful shame if they didn't.
Yeah, at the moment, I think Hubble's fate is going to be deorbited into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think. Yeah.
But who knows?
I don't think the American government will fund it. Allow the funding for it. I think NASA are going to have to, check their budget and say, well, something's got to go.
Yeah.
We had a good run with this, and that's it.
But anyway, time will tell. Time will tell. And obviously, financial dictates may change. It may, in the future, prove more financially beneficial to keep it and update it than simply ditching it into the ocean. We can wish. I know.
Absolutely.
But who knows? Hubble may be saved. A future president may decide that it is worth keeping purely because of the imaging it's doing. and particularly with more and more internet providing satellites being put into Earth orbit, it may well be our last best hope. Because the sky's getting awfully crowded again, and of course it's beginning to interfere with imaging.
It certainly is.
But anyway, we have other things to discuss. We're 50 minutes into the show, folks, and we've had a really good evening, I think, so far.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Actually, instead of hopping around from one topic to the other, we've been kind of concentrating on. I think it's actually working better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next thing I see on the list is the first picture of a sunlight star with multiple exoplanets.
So, do you want me, Neil? Do you want to?
Yeah, go for it, please. Yeah, I haven't got my notes up, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously, how many? They only started finding exoplanets in the last 20 years or something, and it was always done by inference. Like they look at a star, see a dip in its light, and it will repeat, and they inferred that there were planets going around the star. So this is the first time they've actually imaged one, and again, it was the European Southern Observatory. The very large telescope down there has taken the first ever direct image of this young sun-like star, and it has two gas giants, sort of like Jupiter-like maybe type of exoplanets. Oh. And so since the first ones were found, I can't remember the date, but it's only 20 years, isn't it, about that?
Yeah, something like that.
Thousands now have been found, but most of them are only spotted, as we said, because the light dimming in front of their star. And sometimes it's because they see maybe like a tug on the star. They know there has to be more than one planet going around. So anyway, this star, it's a pity they don't give them nicer names, because this one's called TYC 8998-760-1. And it's about 300 light years away from us in the constellation of Musca. And it's quite a young one. It's only 17 million years old, which is really young, actually. You think about the solar system's like 4 billions, and so anyway, it's about the same mass as our sun, so that's why they were saying it's a sun-like star, and so it's like a very young version of our own sun, and it shows us maybe the kind of environment that the solar system could have been way back at an earlier stage of its evolution. And the two exoplanets they're seen, they just look like two points of light distant from their parent star, but like that's an amazing image. Yeah. So now the inner one is this big gas giant. It's 14 times the mass of Jupiter, but it's 160 times further away from its star than say Earth is from the sun. So and then the outer planet weighs 6 times Jupiter's mass, and it's twice as far out then as the other one, as the first one. So these, they're much further away than Jupiter or Saturn are from the sun. Then
I mean, put that into our perspective, that would be sort of like in the Oort cloud, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So 5 to 10 times the Earth's sun distance, it says here.
Yeah.
And then so the instrument that took the photographs on the very large telescope is called the Sphere instrument, and it blocks the bright light from the star with the coronagraph. I'm sure you've all seen those pictures, even of our sun, where you can only see the outer part. They block the center to block out the light. So you can see then fainter planets behind the big solar blast. And then, so older planets like the ones in our solar system are just too cool to be found with this technique. But the young planets that are glowing hotter and brighter in the infrared can be seen. And the way they then know that they are planets is that they take several images over the year, and then they go back through older data, and they confirm that the planets are definitely part of the star system. So it's a really great, and for helping astronomers now to understand how planets formed and evolved around our own sun, as well as these faraway ones. So that's pretty cool. Because I remember hearing about the first exoplanet being discovered only by the dip in the light, and now You're actually able to photograph them, so it's pretty cool.
Amazing, yeah. I wonder if there's anything smaller lurking therein that we can get one day. You know, something about the size of Earth or Venus, you know.
I tend to think as our instruments are getting better, this is the reason we can do it, because our instruments have improved over the past few years. And of course, we can go data mining and look back and say, oh, why didn't I see that before?
Yes, that's a really good point, which is even what they did.
As Stephen Hawking has pointed out in the past, the reason we change our theories of how things happened is because our instruments are getting better at detecting what is actually happening. We are looking back further. For instance, the James Webb will allow us to look back much further into the early universe. Eventually, given perhaps another quantum leap in instrumentation, we may start eventually looking back to just before or just after event 1, the actual Big Bang itself. The only way you're going to get further than the Big, or actually to it, is if you steal a TARDIS and you go back there. But that's a completely different kettle of fish, I think.
Yeah, that won't happen.
It is exciting. That there's the infrared couldn't pick up the more Earth-like planets because they were more, they took longer to. They're older and they're not giving out any light, so they're harder to see. But they're not giving out as much light, not enough. They're too faint.
And of course, we have other techniques which we're using. We're actually looking at the light from a planet's star, and we're able to deduce what the atmosphere is like.
Yes.
One of the things they're trying to do is to see if it can indicate if there's actually life present on near Earth-sized planets that are being detected. So simply by trying to take spectrographic images of the light through a planetary atmosphere, perhaps that will allow us to determine, is there life on that planet? Who knows?
Yes.
And our technology is always improving. And I suppose once we become a proper spacefaring planet, let's put it this way, a proper spacefaring species, and we start putting instruments on the far side of the moon. You will not. I don't say the dark side. The dark side of the moon is an album by Pink Floyd. The moon is never dark, and when we see new moon, is when the sun is lighting up the far side of the moon from us, which we never see, except occasional glimpses during libration, favourable librations.
Absolutely.
You can tell I've been reading my moon books again.
You've been doing well this week.
The thing is, a lot of the old moon books, like what was it? When Patrick Moore did one back in 1950 with Horace somebody or other. I can't remember his last name. I've got the book in my library. It is an excellent text. It tells us what they thought at the time. Yes, as Patrick's pointed out, we got it totally wrong. We thought there had been active volcanoes on the moon. It was actually due to impacts, craters, and most of the volcanic activity was purely because of the energy released from impacts. But then again, they said the same with Mars. Mars had active volcanoes. Actually, with what's going on, Mars may have had active volcanoes. Venus most possibly does. But it's so inimical to life, the pressure is so much, it destroys probes that do land. I think the most we got was 18 minutes out of one of the Veneras, and then it packed up. But those 18 minutes alone, it signalled back to us, it sent pictures back, and it changed the idea that Venus was a paradise to the fact it's an absolute hell to live.
It's hell.
Yeah.
So, of course, by going to the far side of the moon, we can do away with the interference created on our planet by radio. We can put huge radio dishes up. We could have mirrors made from liquid mercury, or even cast mirrors on the moon. And then we can build much bigger telescopes and point them out into deep space. And who knows what we'll discover there. But one good book I will recommend is Lunar Cognita by Robert Garfinkle. It is a simply staggeringly good book. I've got it. Neil, you should have it. I know it's expensive, but it's worth having, actually. £60 for all 3 volumes. You can buy them separate as well. I love it. He's covered everything from the moon in religion through to the moon in science and through explorations. It's a really excellent tome. It's published by Springer. I hasten to add, I have no connections with Springer. They're not paying me to say this. I'm simply saying that it is a bloody good book. That, and of course, old books like A Survey of the Moon by Patrick Moore. Still worth getting. The moon charts alone, the hand-drawn charts of the moon alone, are so good. They still stand the test of time. And if you are really trying to learn the moon, this is the best way to do it. You will get a segment to look at. It will show you the mare, it will show you the craters, and like I say, you can learn to crater hop. And once you can crater hop, or you can distinguish large visible features, then you can find the small stuff. Then you can look for the domes and the rills, and you'll wish you'll say, why didn't I ever do this before? I've always done it. I was hooked, I think, from Apollo. And I firmly and utterly blame Arthur C. Clarke, James Burke, and of course Patrick Moore for that. And my parents were buying me a telescope.
Exactly. That's the way, though.
It is.
I mean, Patrick Moore was such an influence on most of us. It's unbelievable. And of course, he did. We've got to remember that Patrick Moore's real love was the moon. He was an expert in it. I mean, he did a bit of everything, but the moon was his baby. And what he didn't know about the moon wasn't worth knowing, was it, really?
He was even he was charting the moon from Chelsea for NASA, for Apollo.
Exactly.
His charts were being used to create the paper mache mock-ups for the LEM training. Yep. So he would say, this is how you measure the peak in the middle of a crater. You use the shadow. You take a note of the time and the angle of the sun, and you measure the shadow, and that will tell you how tall the peak is in the crater. Other great names from this neck of the woods, speaking generally, was Commander Henry Hatfield, Royal Navy retired. He was a wizard at taking excellent lunar photographs. He wrote an illustrated photographic atlas of the moon. It was adapted for all types of telescopes. And of course, him and Patrick were really, really great, because Patrick would start talking about the moon and Henry would stand up and challenge Patrick on this point or that point, and Patrick would answer. He could prove his working out. He could prove his information. And they were really, really good, particularly at ordinary meetings of the British Astronomical Association. Because you learn something. It wasn't sitting there studying a book. You got to hear 2 experts debating the subject. Both are very greatly missed. Patrick's actual journals and stuff are at the Science Museum.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to contact us if you want to read them or look at something something he's written about a crater or a rill or something. There's somewhere in his journals it will be there. You may have to make an appointment. They may even make a copy for you. But as I say, all of his journals went to the Science Museum. They are catalogued. They are available there. And that is perhaps one of the greatest things that's happened.
Wonderful legacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a great book actually by Martin Mobley, who's a great friend of Patrick Moore's and was on the show a few times, and he used to go down there a lot to see him. It's called Return to the Far Side of Planet Moore, I believe. And again, it's on Springer, which, as I say, we're not endorsed by them, but I'm just saying. And it's there's a great bit in there about the moon as well, where Martin's obtained a few of the pictures that you're talking about. He's, got permission to take the shots from Patrick way back when and stuck them in a book, and you can see Patrick Moore's drawings of craters and how he was doing this working out, as you were saying, Nick, a minute ago. So it's all another good book to look into.
And of course he loved to publish guides, and I've got at least 2 versions, maybe 3 versions of his Guide to the Moon. And obviously things got a bit thinner moving to present day. I suppose really people just don't want to have the time to read. I have one of the earlier copies of the Guide to the Moon. I have a second copy of it somewhere. It's signed by Patrick. If I can find that, I should be a very happy man. But as I say, he wrote guides to comets, to other planets. He had he was one of the people who was lucky enough not only to interview Neil Armstrong. He had Yuri Gagarin as a guest on the Sky at Night, and Patrick was able to go into Soviet Russia at the height of the Cold War with a BBC film crew.
That's right,
to record for the Sky at Night, because there was no politics on the Sky at Night. He had managed to find somehow the perfect balance between science and popularism. He didn't dumb it down, but he didn't overload the mind with science.
No. He kept it right for everybody.
Exactly. So
everybody can understand it, whether you be an amateur astronomer in your back garden or a school child of 9 years of age. He made it so that you could understand what you were looking at and how to achieve looking at these things and how to make notes of these things and keep observations and drawings and things. He made it so wonderfully
accessible.
To everybody.
But as I say, the moon is not a dead, boring place. It's always changing. And the best thing is, you can look at, as I said earlier, you can look at a formation under a certain lighting on one day, go through days, the angles of the light have changed, and you will see things you just certainly didn't realise you had missed the first time round. I think that's probably why so many of us still like to look at it with our telescopes and image it, because there's just so much you can see. It changes on an almost daily basis.
There is one thing I hate, and I must admit this. I hate the terms used, supermoon and moon. I hate supermoon with a passion.
I totally agree.
And every time I see it, that's it. I'm not interested. Actually, Nick, you know the exact technical term for this, don't you? Synergy, what's it called again?
Synergy of the Earth, Moon and Sun system.
That's it. A supermoon. I know it's I think it was it in an old magazine?
No, it was an American astrologer in 1979 that coined the phrase supermoon and micromoon.
That's it. You got it.
Astrologer, was it?
Astrology, yes. Ironically, his first name was Norman too.
I have no comment.
But
I didn't know that. I knew it was like, a made up phrase.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
As
Patrick always say about astrology.
It's always all over the newspapers and the media when there's one coming, and it gets people looking up, and in my book that's good.
And of course we got Maggie Philbin. I can never remember how the correct way her name is. Anyway, we got Dr. Maggie, and she is such a fellow lunatic. She's absolutely enthralled by the moon still. She's written books about it and everything else.
And she did a great program too.
Yes, she did.
You should be able to YouTube. I've forgotten what it's called.
How?
I can't off the top of my head.
She did a TV. She did a show about why the moon gave us our lives as we know them.
Yes, right.
Because without the moon, we wouldn't exist.
We wouldn't have tides. Think of all. Gosh, yeah.
In fact, there'd be no life here. Period. Because at one point during the Great Lunar Bombardment, the moon soaked up so much that would have, if it got through to us, it would have possibly never allowed life to develop on this planet.
Yep, it took a big kicking.
Not only that, we have Jupiter to thank. Jupiter is a bit of a Janus character in this, because Jupiter can do one of two things. Jupiter can either hoover it up and it crashes into the Jovian system, or it can sling it at us. And sometimes, in actual fact, Neil, we should thank Jupiter, because sometimes it nudges a comet just into the right orbit, so that it actually comes past us and we get to see perhaps a Hale-Bopp or highest Harkey. So in some
Absolutely.
respects,
Or Comet Lexel 1770 was nearly a crash with us, but that was thanks to Jupiter. And of course, I was just going to say, actually, it's just been announced that I think we've found a trans-Neptunian comet that has now been captured by Jupiter and is now in a resonance of 1-to-1 with Jupiter. And it's one of the first comets we've seen that have been captured. I mean, from the trans-Neptunian area. I mean, we'd love to have our old friend Strasman Vackman, wouldn't we? I mean, that's been kicking off again. I know we're not going to talk about comets, really, but
yes, SW1, yes, 29p SW1. If we're gonna talk about SW1 on the show, we have to get Richard Miles back, because he is the expert on Wackman. But there's also 79p SW2. So two rather nice comets, and of course 29p does go into periodic outbursts. And I would really love to send a space probe there. I know Richard would, and there's quite a few of us that would think that would be a jolly good idea, because we do know how and when it happens. We have a good idea of the violence of the outburst, so we would be able to protect the probe once it went into orbit around the comet.
The dust shells that have been kicking off this week are unbelievable.
I know.
If you watch the animations, it's crazy.
Yeah. But as I say, that's something else. My favourite time for going deep sky is at new moon. Then I want to see the thinnest possible waxing crescent, and I think that one of the things I hope to do once I get my telescope fully commissioned is to try and aim for the thinnest possible moon.
What is the record for that? Do we know how many hours old
I know it's a very, very thin one.
Yeah, and it's like really only a few hours, isn't it? I mean, literally.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Islamic astronomers look for it so they can actually know the beginning of the next month, because they still use a lunar calendar.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't know that.
And actually, lunar calendars are still used in places like Vietnam,
really?
to some point South Korea, and most definitely China.
Blimey.
Because Chinese New Year
I didn't know that.
is actually linked to the moon. It's a lunar New Year, not a solar New Year like we have.
Yeah, and lunar. Wow. And we're back to the moon again. You see, we were talking about exoplanets. I wonder if we'll find moons around exoplanets. I mean, that would be
eventually, yes. Why not?
There have to.
Imagine.
Yeah,
it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have asteroids who are moons in this solar system.
Yeah.
But I'm sure
we were going to talk about that galaxy, weren't we, as well?
What's this? The galaxy with the big hole in it?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe you want to mention that, Anne.
Yeah, I don't have any notes on it, but I only heard briefly that this galaxy was found with with no center in it. Now so I can't even tell you. I can't tell you who photographed it or how it was found, because I only literally heard a bit about it. But there's two possibilities. One is that something like what will happen with the Andromeda Galaxy. We always think that when we crash with the Andromeda Galaxy, that basically if you were still around, you wouldn't even notice, because it'll just all swirl past each other and nothing will hit anything. So either something went through the center of the galaxy, possibly another galaxy, or some kind of massive explosion which has obscured the center, because with all the clouds of dust that came out of it.
Yeah.
So that's as much as I know at the moment. I'll report back if I hear any more.
That would be excellent, because perhaps there's been a collision between two black holes as well. We just don't know.
Yeah. More stuff for bigger and better telescopes to find out.
Yeah.
And of course, there's been a bit more findings about Betelgeuse as well, hasn't there? They've worked out that a quarter of the star's brightness was cut out by a cloud of dust that was cooling or something between us.
That it put out by itself. It was its own dust. Remember, they thought there were sunspots and there were all kinds of different reasons, or that it was going to go into supernova. But now the latest Yeah, it just blew out a cloud of dust and obscured part of it.
It was very eerie. I don't know how many people were, looking at it, but it was very eerie looking at this past winter, looking at the constellation and seeing Betelgeuse looking so sorry for itself. It was.
Yeah.
It was. I've been looking at this for 40 odd years, and I've never seen Betelgeuse that dim. We all know it's a variable star, but it was crazy, worryingly dim sort of thing. It was great to see it come back again in the spring, just before it disappeared into the twilight. So
yeah.
And it will soon be coming back into our skies anyway. We are in August.
Yeah.
Now, so we will start seeing the winter constellations coming back very, very slowly. Orion will be peeping over the horizon soon enough, if not already in the small wee hours.
Of course. As soon as you see the Pleiades, it's a new season.
But as I say, had Betelgeuse gone, it would have been a very exciting. It would have been very obvious, I think, at night, and certainly if the Homunculus had gone up in Eta Carina, that certainly would have given us a very, very different vision of the southern stars. Daylight probably would have been pretty much 24/7. It certainly would have been allowed you to read a newspaper, I'm sure, by night.
Wow.
We just have to wait and see, won't we? Which comes first.
Absolutely. But just one last thing, speaking of the Pleiades, on the 8th of September, the moon is going to be near both Pleiades and Hyades, so nice little thing to look out for if we get a clear night.
Yeah, I love those sort of things, I must admit.
Yeah. And talking about your little crescent moon, not as sliverly as you were talking about, 15% crescent on the 14th of September, and it will be very close to the Beehive Cluster.
Oh, my birthday!
Another nice thing to look for.
It's my birthday. I'll write that down on my birthday.
Oh, Beehive Cluster for your birthday.
And of course, also coming next month on the 26th of September is International Observe the Moon Night. Go to the LRO website. All the information is there.
Oh yeah, I actually know the girl who coordinates that. Her name is Stacey. She worked as an intern with us for a while, and now she works for NASA, and she coordinates the NASA section of the International Observe the Moon Night.
Well, touch wood. I should have the telescope outside by then. So yes, I intend to take part, even though, of course, current regulations say we can't have things. Yeah. How can you social distance around a telescope?
I know. Well, everybody will have to have their own, or binoculars, or I don't know. I'm sure it can be done.
Oh yes. Yeah. So I should definitely hold it at my observatory here in. I am East Anglia. Yeah, I'm East Anglia. So yes, I should be holding it.
Are we?
Yes, we are.
Are we? Where are you now? Then?
I'm in East Anglia.
Oh, so am I.
I'm in the same time zone as you, Neil.
I know. I just wondered.
I've been for nearly a year now, and we still haven't done Comet Watch down the pub.
No, we haven't, have we? No, we still haven't done Comet Watch.
That's going to be done at the end of the month. Don't worry.
There's normally Space Week around October the 4th to the 10th, but I don't know with everything up in the air. I don't know what's the normal.
Sort, isn't it?
You know, I don't know what's going ahead. A lot of people are doing virtual stuff now and online stuff, so it's worth keeping an eye out all the same. So
I do.
Report back.
Yeah, Davey was doing some wonderful stuff on Zoom, outreach education for children and things. So I'm sure we can get a link or something done because he's a good friend of ours. So he's doing a lot of that. I mean, I know, for example, he's got a couple of bookings for 2021 cancelled already. So it's a bit worrying where this is going to go and how long it's going to last. But it's going to hit everybody hard, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, the one good thing is that no matter how much you're kept in, you can always look up.
Well, we're saying that telescope sales from when lockdown started soared. There wasn't a telescope to be had on eBay.
Yeah.
Most of the there's three big companies, maybe two in the UK that warehouse all the imported telescopes for all the dealers, and they were pretty much cleared out.
Wow.
The same with all the second-hand DSLRs. They went like nobody's business.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people are either doing astronomy, astro imaging, or taking up photography.
I can tell you this, as Nick will know, because we've got a Facebook group, Comet Watch, and we had literally thousands of people wanting to join us when this lockdown started, didn't we? And
not only that, we also had two bright comets, reasonably bright.
Oh
comets,
yeah, and
fueling...
also I was going to say also a local East Anglian daily newspaper reached out to me. They wanted me to do a piece for them. They've never had so many people looking at the sky. All the children at the time were into the Starlinks because they were starting to go over.
Dramatic.
And the noctilucent clouds.
Yeah. And we had the Persians.
People didn't know what these things were. They just thought it was like, oh, it's a bit of a cloud over there tonight. You might have a shower. They didn't realise what these things were.
Yeah.
They're just amazed. And then I told my editor what they were, and she's like, oh, really? I said, yeah. I just thought they were like shower clouds. And, her jaw dropped. I said, these things were what they were. They're not clouds.
They're super. They were the best I've ever seen this year. Those ones in kind of early July, I've never seen anything like them.
Now, is it because there's not so much pollution, because there wasn't so much plane traffic, maybe, or
that too? Yeah.
Who knows what it was? I mean, I know the atmosphere has been colder. They've found out this year, so I don't know. I just do not know. Nick, do you know?
No, I don't. Noctilucent clouds are not my field, dear boy.
They're magnetized, but that's another show.
It's just around ice crystals up on the Arctic, really high up.
To see them down here in Suffolk, I mean, we never get them.
But you're always looking northwards to see them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always really low, but these high, 15, 20 degrees up.
Well, very low in the sky, but this time they were so high up. They were up above the comet.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
They were like the comet was being seen through them. It was like magic. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
The magazine will be full of pictures this month coming up in September. We've so many pictures sent in. We couldn't even fit them all, of course.
No,
and like you said, the interest in astronomy has just, soared since the whole lockdown started.
Of course, the thing is now to keep people interested, because the great thing about it, and this is something that Patrick has touched on, astronomy is one of those rare things, whereas amateurs, we can do professional work. Our images, our observations are still very much in demand by the professional community, purely because we have the time and the instruments they don't have. Getting time on the 200-inch Palomar telescope means you have to look years ahead. Getting time on ALMA and the ESO telescopes, you're looking years ahead. You have to have the money to do it. But amateur astronomers have the equipment, they have the observatories, and they like to spend as many clear nights outdoors as they can. They provide the variable star observations that are used when they're going to turn the Hubble onto that particular object. They do the months and months of timings on the variability of the star, which is the target. Then it's submitted to the Hubble team, so they know exactly where minima is, they know where maxima is, and they know when it starts to change. If they didn't, and they put the Hubble on it, they'll probably damage the instrument, and they don't want to do that. It can't be fixed right now. But, as I say, amateur astronomers learn, once you've learned your way around the sky, once you've learned how to accurately report what you're seeing. There are plenty of places you can learn. The British Astronomical Association, the Society for Popular Astronomy, they're good places to go. The American Astro League and the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers in the States all have international membership. They have observer training programs. They're worth doing, because once you know exactly what you're doing, your observations become priceless to the professionals, and even more so if you're doing imaging, because you can give them every piece of information they need. They can look at your image, they know what scope you've got, the camera, how the image was taken, the timings, the filters, the lot. And that's how they get their data. They can do photometric work on your information. Amateurs can do spectroscopic work. They can do photometric work themselves. And, of course, they can take part in programs like NeoShield.
Yes.
And the work that is so important.
Spot impacts on Jupiter, like we said before. And I said the wrong name. I called him John. It's Neil McKeown. Sorry, Neil.
And of course, Neil, you had a piece of information that you bombed on us about a passing rock in the past few days, didn't you?
Yes, our friend Daniel Bamberger frantically sent me a message 2 nights ago saying that a record close approach by an asteroid that wasn't going to hit the Earth was very fastly incoming. It was, I've forgotten what the actual, I think it's been designated since, and I don't actually have access to the name of it now, but I'm sure Nick will find it, because
Nick is working on it.
Yeah.
It was literally found about 3 or 4 hours before it was passing Earth, within 3,000 kilometers. It was only a small object. It was only about 3 meters in diameter. It wouldn't have obviously caused a huge amount of damage had it have hit anyway, but it is currently the record holder for an object passing the Earth, asteroid wise, without actually hitting the Earth.
Yeah.
I heard since that it went over one of the poles. I can't remember which pole, but it went over one of the poles. That was the orbiter was on.
I believe it's the North Pole. Yeah,
it's the North Pole. Okay.
There's a great guy. There's a guy on Twitter. He only does Twitter, unfortunately. He's called Tony Dunn. He's an American who does wonderful orbit simulations, and he does them very, very quickly too. So, if something's discovered, I mean, within a few hours, he's got this brilliant simulation going of you can see it coming, shooting in past the geostationary satellites and shooting past the Earth, and then he has a perspective if you was actually on the asteroid, what you would see as well. And then he has another one where you can actually, he shows it going through the sky. He has the stars and the constellations up, and you can actually see how quick it went through the sky, as well as it passed through the constellations, had you been lucky enough to have your telescope there at the time.
Yeah.
And what was coming. I don't know. As I
Here
say,
we go. Here we go.
Oh, you've got
the NEOCP object C2Y TNX2 has now been designated as 2020 PW. It's an Apollo-type asteroid with a diameter of 21 to 47 meters. It was originally first observed at Mount Lemmon survey on August the 11th. There are pre-recovery observations from Pan-STARRS a few days earlier. It made a close approach today, that was 6 days ago, at a distance of 0.0138 astronomical units. That's 2 million kilometers from the Earth. And it was visible at plus 18.5 mag, and it was moving at 15 degrees per minute through Pegasus.
Wow. I don't. How far away? Because he told me it was
3,000 kilometers. I'm saying here.
No, this is 3,000. No,
I
he
thought
said
it was 3,000 kilometers.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, 3,000 kilometers. It was found by was it Zwicky?
The Zwicky Transient Survey.
Yeah, that was found by them.
Okay.
And
that's the one I saw Daniel talking about just now. 6 days ago. I'm just trying to see if I can see it in your message, because I know that you took. Yeah, it's going back.
But yes, it was very, very close. Not big, but it was a bit big enough to cause a bit of a fireworks display.
Oh yes.
I'm frantically
here we go.
Find it now.
ZTF0DXQ missed us by less than 3,000 kilometers. There you go.
Yeah,
that's the one. It's about 2,900 kilometers or something like that, which is very, very close.
Yeah.
And it shows you. I mean, we're getting better at finding these things. somebody said to me yesterday.
Cough.
Somebody said to me yesterday, literally yesterday, you know, 'cause I was talking about this asteroid, and they said, "Oh, what happened then if it's going to hit the Earth? If it's on a trajectory to hit the Earth?" And I said, "Well, it would hit the Earth." Oh, and what about that comet? You know, Neowise. I said, "Well, it was discovered in sort of like the latter part of March, and you know, it sort of like got here in July, so that's the amount of time you'd have had before it hit the Earth. So there's no way of stopping these things." And I said, "No, absolutely. I mean, Neowise has a diameter of about 5 kilometers. So if we take that into consideration, what do they think the dinosaur killer was? 6? Was it 6 kilometers? I said
Something like that. Yes, Chicxulub. Yes.
Yeah. So we're talking, if they are correct about Neowise, and Neowise probably was a big comet. It's basically on almost the scale of the dinosaur event, and we found it in the end of March. So put that into perspective. You can't stop these things, and we would have had a way of getting out of the way. We would have had to. Well, it would have summed 2020 up perfectly, wouldn't it? Really? I mean, if that hit us.
Well, the thing is, Neil, what you got?
Well, there are the Hera and Dark missions, which are for the future, not for one that came in this year now, but you know, in the future they are looking at ways of deflecting asteroids and comets if they were incoming. But that would be, I mean, the actual missions are happening, but the you know, the future kind of technology to send something, scramble planes up or whatever they're going to send up quickly, some kind of rocket to deflect something. I don't think anybody's got that organised just yet, but that is the plan for the future if this works. So long term we will have defence, but yeah, so long as nothing comes in the meantime.
This is it, and we had so little warning there.
To quote Colonel Jack O'Neill, relax, let Carter sort it out. Sorry, Stargate quote for you.
Good old Stargate.
Well, it was one of those stay calm and let Carter. There's a picture of O'Neill on the front in his jumpsuit saying, stay calm, relax, let Carter sort it out.
Brilliant.
Well, NASA and ESA will be sorting it out. It's a kind of a, not quite a joint mission, but a connected mission, 2 different missions, but they're connected to do this asteroid deflection thing.
I think eventually most of the world's space agencies that have a heavy lift capability. Now that does include the Russians and Chinese. The Japanese certainly are lobbing quite heavy bits of kit into space. So I could see JAXA, Roscoff, China's space agency certainly working. It's a case of we have to forget politics. Politics doesn't matter. The Rock doesn't care about them.
Yes. No, exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to see a bit more international cooperation.
And to be honest, the European Space Agency has proven how well it can be done. That individual nations do cooperate. They have a simple formula. The number of your nationals on the project is down to how much cash you're putting into it, which is fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So ESA have definitely showed international cooperation in space is possible. We even showed that back during the Cold War was still with us during Skylab, and then we had the Apollo Soyuz link up in space. It proved it can be done, and right now, certainly up until the Dragon capsule was proven as totally man-rated, Americans and other nations were being carried to the ISS by Russia. So politics were definitely being put aside. It's called money.
Yeah, exactly. Any thoughts?
Well, as I say, we've actually had quite a long show. Looking at this already, we have been on the air in total for about 1.5 hours, definitely over 1.5 hours, 1 hour 34 minutes. This is what happens when you get astronomers together. We love to talk.
When you're talking about astronomy.
Exactly, you see? That's it.
You get programs out of that, Nick.
So anyway, I really think we probably should start to wrap up. and call it 1 hour 35 because that way I'm going to send the show to astronomy.fm to see if they'll play it. I didn't get around to doing it with the first one because we were all rather busy and it was rather chaotic on our first month.
Yes.
But as I say, things happen. We are going to have guests coming on the show. We are talking to people for guests. So
Yeah.
maybe from the next show onwards we'll have our first guest. So myself,
Yes.
Neil, and Anne will be thrashing out exactly who's going to be there. It is harvest time after all, so threshing is kind of
Yes.
temporarily correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I suppose really we should say good night because, as I say, this is a much longer show than I thought we had actually got planned, but it's a much enjoyable show to make. I quite enjoyed making tonight's show.
Me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, felt nice and relaxed.
Yeah, so certainly it's good night from him.
And good night from me.
And good night from me.
Good night, everyone. And on that bombshell,
Okay.
look up.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Clear skies.